Do you want to keep designing PNGs or finally start creating real working websites? You see, there's a new trend in the web design community. More and more designers are realizing that when they use Figma to design websites, they are essentially just creating PNGs, images. They design the website, export it as a PNG, and post it on Twitter or Dribble thinking that, oh, I'm so cool, I designed a nice website. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's not a website. It's just an image. You still have to send it to a developer who will then recreate it, but let's be honest, it probably won't even look like how you designed it in the first place. So what is that secret process that the top 1% of Figma users have started using recently? A process that allows them to build their web designs with familiar elements like drawing rectangles on a design canvas or using auto layout. A process that lets them click publish when they finish designing, producing a real, responsive website instead of a static image. A process that makes them a more valuable designer, allowing them to charge more for their work. In this video, I'm going to reveal that exact process. My name is Nandi, this is Figma University, and let's get started. I'm going to break this video up into 4 sections. In the first section, I'll show why this new process is a no-brainer and explain why web designers are leaving Figma because of it. In the second section, I'll demonstrate how to add interactive elements to your newly created website. In the third section, I'll show you how to save your previous Figma projects and turn those into real websites as well. Lastly, I will reveal where top website builders go to find the best copy and pastable power-ups for their websites. Without any further ado, let's jump into the first section and explore this new process. Okay, so here's this new tool. It's called Framer. You can see it on the right side of my screen. And if you take a look at Figma on the left, you can see that Framer has a pretty similar user interface to Figma. And you're going to also see that its web design process is also quite similar. So why don't we just start designing the same hero section in Figma and in Framer as well? But before I start, I want to mention that don't forget to check the description because I'm going to have a remix link for the Framer project and the Figma file as well, so you can dig into each and use them in your projects if you want to. So let's create this hero section. I think we can start by taking a look at these 2 desktop breakpoints that I have here. So in Figma, as you can see, it is just a simple frame. And in Framer, it is the desktop breakpoint itself. Each of them are turned into an auto layout. So in Figma, it's called auto layout. You can see its properties here on the right panel. And in Framer, it is called layout or stack. And you can see its properties right here. Basically, you can see that the user interface is a bit different here, but you can see that basically the settings are the same. So direction is vertical here, the same in Figma. Everything is in the center, the distribute is in center, alignment is in the center as well. You can see it is the same in Figma as well. So basically we have the same setup in Figma and in Framer as well. And we're going to be adding elements to these desktop breakpoints. So let's start by adding a little text layer. So I'm going to go hit T on my keyboard and click into this desktop in Figma. And I can type in my text. It is going to be embrace the power of an icon. So embrace the power of an icon. So this is our text. And as you can see, if we go into Framer, we can do the same thing. We can press T on our keyboard, click into this desktop breakpoint and type in embrace the power of an icon. And you can see that in both apps, we have the text properties on the right panel when we select the text layer. So here we have inter, medium, basically everything is set properly here. So we just have to adjust these in Framer. So I'm going to change the size here to 46. Then I'm going to also make sure that it is medium. And then the letter spacing will be decreased just a little bit. And then maybe the line height can be also decreased. And now we have basically the same text in Figma and in Framer as well. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate the text layer in Figma and then write Phantom Series 2. Here we're going to have a different size for the text, so 16 pixels, and the letter spacing will be 10%. And basically these will be the 2 changes that I'm going to make. I'm going to do the same in Framer, duplicate the text, write Phantom Series 2, and then decrease the size on the right panel, 16, have a little bit bigger letter spacing, and then maybe we can also change the weight to regular and in Figma as well. So I'm going to go back to Figma and change it to regular. So you can see that it is very similar. We basically do the same thing in Figma and Framer. We are adding these text layers and adjusting their properties on the right panel. So let's create a button as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit T on my keyboard, click into this desktop breakpoint in Figma and write view in detail. I'm going to change the properties of this text so it's not going to have so large letter spacing. It's going to have -3 and it's going to be medium weight. And if we zoom in here, you see that this is our little label here. What we can do to create a button out of this is we can wrap this in a frame. So the way I'm going to do that is by pressing Shift and A on my keyboard. This wraps it in a frame, as you can see. I can rename it to button. And then I can set it to fixed height, 32 or maybe 44. And then I can set left and right padding to 20. Fill color will be black, or maybe let's just keep it on gray for now. And then have fully rounded corners. And as you can see, we basically created a little button. So how can we do this in Framer? We basically do the same, hit T, click, write view in detail, then select the text and just zoom in a little bit and then change the letter spacing to -3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the weight to medium here as well. And here we have a little bit different shortcut, which basically does the same thing. And it is Option Command and Enter. As you can see, it wraps it in a frame. However, it is called stack here, but we can rename it to button here as well. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that the width is fit content, so it fits the text. And then the height is also, it's going to be fixed here, just like in Figma. And it's going to have 44 pixel height, exactly like in Figma. And then here is where we can adjust the padding values. So as you can see in Figma, we adjusted it right here to 20 on the left and on the right. We can do the same here by clicking this little button and adjusting the right to 20 and the left to 20 as well. And then we can also change the fill color here to a gray color. And then the border radius will be this little property. So as you can see, I'm adjusting the same little properties on the right panel to adjust this button design on my design canvas. I think we can continue by grouping these elements together. So first I'm going to do it in the Figma version. So I'm going to select the Phantom Series 2 and embrace the power of an icon, and then press Shift and E on my keyboard. As we already learned it, it wraps it in a frame, and we can call this title plus sub. And then we can select these texts here within, set them to fill container for the width, and then the alignment for the text layers will be on the left. And I can then set a gap for the title plus sub, and we're gonna set it to 16 pixel. So as you can see, we are just taking advantage of the auto layout feature in Figma, and we can do the same in Framer with stacks. So we can select the 2 text layers, then press Option Command and Enter. So as you can see, it is a bit different shortcut, but does the same thing. And then the width will be fit content. Then the 2 text layers are set to width fill, so they fill up the available space. And then their alignment is to the left. And we can adjust the gap here as well to 16 for this little stack, which we can also rename to title plus sub. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select these title plus sub and the button on the Figma version, and then wrap these in a frame as well. So Shift A, and then what I'm gonna have is a different gap, so it's gonna be 28. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the alignment to the left, so this button is now on the left side, nicely aligned to the texts. So that's all I'm gonna do here. And then what I'm gonna also do is I'm gonna make sure that the title plus sub is set to fill container here. So now I can nicely adjust this width for the frame 1 here, which we can rename to title plus button. And as you can see, the text and everything will be nicely responsive. So it is working really nicely. Let's do the same thing in Framer. Select the title plus sub and the button, and then let's press Option Command Enter to wrap it in a stack. Let's set the width to fit content. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 28 gap, just like in Figma. And then here, the alignment will be to the left. So now, as you can see, the little button jumps to the left. Now it is aligned to the text layers. We can rename this stack to title plus button as well. Title plus button. So now, again, if we change the width of this, it will be nicely responsive. No, not yet, because the title plus sub is now width fixed. And as you remember, we also set it to width fill in Figma. So if we do the same thing here, you will see that we get the same nice and responsive behavior here in Framer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab each of these title plus button frames and just place them here outside of the desktop breakpoint. I'm going to do the same with the Framer version as well, because we're going to use the desktop breakpoints now to add a nice background image to this hero section. So I'm going to start with the Figma version. In the desktop breakpoint, I'm going to draw another frame. So I'm hitting F on my keyboard and drawing a frame. As you can see, it's called frame 1. We can rename it to background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to fill width, so it fills up the available space, and then also fill for the height. So now it fills up the full width and height of the desktop breakpoint. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this background into an auto layout by clicking this button. And I want to make sure that the direction is vertical, the gap and the padding is 0, and the alignment is right here in the bottom left corner. Now what I can do is I can create another frame within the background. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the right panel and click this little button, which will basically make it absolutely positioned. And then I can make sure that it fills up the available space here. So it nicely fills up the full desktop breakpoint. I can rename it to image. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to fill and then set a background image for this little frame, which is going to be this image right here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the image, go to constraints, and then set it to left and right and top and bottom, just to make sure that if this background layer is changing in width or height, the image frame is also changing with it. So now let's make this same setup with Framer. So first, we're going to create a frame by pressing F and drawing it here within this desktop breakpoint. Then we're going to remove the fill color, turn it into a layout, and make sure that it is vertical. The distribute is set to end, and the alignment is set to the left. The gap will be set to 0, and then the width will be fill, and the height will be fill as well. We can rename this tag to background. And then let's create that other frame for the image within the background. So I created this little frame here. Let's call it image. And then we're going to change it to absolute here as well, just like in Figma. Here we don't have this little button that we had in Figma. As you can see right here, we have this little drop down here where we can select absolute positioning. And then instead of these constraints that we have in Figma, we have these layout pins. And we can just pin these to all sides like this and set all these values to 0. And basically this will make sure that it always keeps that 0 pixel distance from the top, left, right, and bottom. So now we can change the fill to an image fill and choose the same image here. So that Rolls-Royce. So let's see how that looks. It looks exactly like how it is in Figma. So now we can make some further adjustments here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the desktop breakpoint on the Figma version and set the left and right padding to 24. And I'm going to also set a bottom 24 padding. I'm going to do the same here on the Framer version, select the desktop breakpoint and set 24 on the left, on the right, and on the bottom as well. So now as you can see, we have some breathing room around the edges. So it looks pretty great. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the image on the Figma version and around its corners a little bit. So maybe 32 pixels or Maybe that's too much. Let's have 16 instead. Then have the same corner radius here in Framer, 16 for the image. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a navigation bar on the Figma version. So let's just draw a frame here on the canvas. Let's call this nav. And then I'm going to just place it here within this desktop. Now, as you can see, it is placed within the image. You can see it on the layers panel here. I can just drag it here to the desktop. So now it is right here on top. I can set it to, let's say, 60 pixel height. But before that, let's just turn it into an auto layout. Then set the height to fixed, 60. And then the fill width can be activated here, so it fills up the available space. So this looks really great. We can add some content to this navbar, but first let's create this frame in Framer as well. So I drew a frame here. As you can see, I do the same things. And then within the desktop breakpoint, I paste it in, then set the layout. Height will be set to 60, and then the width will be fill. And basically that's it. We can rename this to nav. And now let's add some elements to this navigation bar in Figma. So I think I have a little logo here. Yes, let's just copy this one and paste it in here. You can see it is right here in the middle. And then we can create a button here as well. I'm going to just copy this one that we already created here and paste it within the nav. As you can see, it is a bit large for the navigation bar, so let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's say we have 12 pixels for the size of the text, then 32 pixels for the height of the button, and let's say 12 pixels for the left and the right paddings on the button. This can have a black background, and yeah, it looks really nice. What we can also do is we can add a text layer here, which says P2. So now we have this as well. And the order will be a bit different like this. So the logo, text, and then the button. So now let's do the same thing in Framer. I'm going to just go here to the Figma version and copy the SVG, copy as SVG for the logo, and then paste it here within the navigation. So Command and V. So we have this graphic layer here now. Let's call it logo. We can also copy and paste our little button here within the navigation and then change these properties again. 12 will be the size of the text. 32 will be the size of the button, and then the padding values are also changing on left and on right, as well as the background color of the button. Now we can also add the little P2 text. So let's click with the text tool and write P2 and change it to black. And let me see what size we had. Okay, so we had 12 in Figma, but I think it can be a little bit bigger, like 16. So let's do the same thing here. We're gonna have 16 pixel, not just for that little bracket, but for the full text here. So 16, and a little bit smaller letter spacing, like -3. So now we have every single element here, and it looks really nice. However, what I want is to have them distributed equally throughout the full width of this navigation bar. The way we can do that is basically really simple because we're using auto layout and stack in Framer. So I'm going to select the nav firstly in Figma and then set this gap to auto, which basically will mean that the logo is on the left, the text is in the middle, and the button is on the right. And the way I can do that in Framer is by selecting the nav, which is a stack, and then the distribute will be space between, which does the same thing. Basically, all we have to do is to add the text layers that we created at the beginning of this little process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first Command and X on this title plus button on the Figma version, and then paste it within the background here. So I'm going to paste it in, Command and V. And now as you can see, it looks really nice. It is right here at the edges. To make sure we have a little bit more breathing room, we can set a little bit padding on the background layer. So let's have 44 maybe. Really great. And then change the text layer's color to white because it doesn't really look nice like that. And also the button can be white with a black colored text. So let's do the same thing in Framer, title plus button, Command and X, paste it in within the background. As you can see, it is placed right here. You can see the bounding box, but we cannot see it. Well, it's because it is below the image, so we can just move it to the top of the image, and it is still not visible. Well, here is a little difference in Framer. You can see that these layers can have z-index properties, which basically means that if a layer has a higher z-index, it will be above other layers. So image has z-index 1 and title plus button doesn't have any z-index. So the way I can solve this is I can just add style z-index to the title plus button and set it to 2. So now it has a higher z-index, so it is above the image. So let's add the same breathing room to the background element. So padding can be 44, and then change the colors of these text layers to white, and then change the button to white, and then the color of the text on the button can be black. So now as you can see, we have the same hero section in Figma on the left and in Framer on the right. So now if we focus a little bit more on Framer, you can see that we have this little desktop breakpoint and we have this breakpoint button in the top right corner. If we click that, we can add a tablet and a phone breakpoint as well. So we see all versions of this website right next to each other. So what we can do here is we can optimize the design on each breakpoint. So let's see, desktop looks really nice, tablet also looks fine, but here we have some problems on the phone breakpoint. So first of all, the nav should be direction horizontal. So let's keep that on horizontal. Then what else do we need? I think we can decrease the padding on the breakpoint. So instead of 24, we can have like 16. Okay, so that looks better. For the background, I think we have too much space here. So instead of these 36, we can have something like 26. And then the text layers are also a little bit off. So first of all, the title plus button can have width fill, so it fills up the available space. And then the size can be decreased just a little bit to make sure that it is not too big for this phone breakpoint. And yeah, basically that's it. As you can see, now it is nicely optimized for mobile as well. And the great thing in Framer is that now here I can just click this play button and I can see that this is how this would look in a real browser on the internet. So as you can see, it is nicely responsive. Let's also compare the output of each app. In Figma, I can select this desktop breakpoint and then go to the right panel, export, and export it as a PNG, export desktop, and I can save it here. And then if I open my Finder, you're gonna see that if I go to that folder, you can see that here it is, desktop PNG. We have a PNG output with Figma. On the other hand, in Framer, I can go to the top right corner and click this little publish button, and basically now this website is being published to the internet. And you can see that here we have this little link that I can click. And as you can see, it's live on the internet. We have this little automatically generated link here. And as you can see, it is responsive. So I can change the width of this. We have a website on the internet. If we don't like this, ugly domain, we can add the custom domain. So we can have a free Framer subdomain. So either framer.website, framer.photos, framer.media, framer.wiki, or framer.ai. So let's have roles.framer.ai. And now we have this domain, which is completely free, and our website is live on the internet on that domain. Pretty amazing, isn't it? So as you can see, I was doing the same thing on the left and on the right, in Figma and in Framer, drawing frames, adding text layers, and setting up auto layout in Figma or stacks in Framer. And what is the only difference? The only difference is that in Figma I got a PNG, and in Framer I got a responsive working website on the internet that I could literally publish with a single click. So let me ask you right here, why would you design websites in Figma if you then have to rebuild that same design in Webflow or with HTML and CSS, so you're doing the work twice? when you could basically start designing the website right in Framer and have a completed website at the end of the process that you don't have to rebuild in any other tool? Well, I'm gonna let you think about that one, but now let's go into the second section and see how we can add some interactivity and animation to our little hero section in Framer. So I'm gonna make Framer full screen, and we are going to basically go from the static hero section to this nicely animated interactive one in just seconds. So what we can do in Framer is we can simply select these layers and, for example, turn them into components. So for example, if I want to have a hover state for this button, I can click it and turn it into a component. So right click and create component, and we can call that button and click create. Here it is pretty simple. We have this component canvas where we have the primary variant of this component button, and then I can rename that to default. And you can see that I have this little button here, which is called hover/pressed. If I click that, I can select hover, and here I created a hover state for this button where I can basically customize how the hover state of this button looks. So let's say I want to make this button a little bit bigger on hover, so let's have a little bit bigger height, 48 let's say, and 24 or 22 padding on the sides. Okay, so now we can also increase the text size to 17 maybe, and then I can also change the fill color to a little bit darker one. And so now we created a hover state. We can also click this play button here to take a look at that. And as you can see, we now have this little scale up effect on hover. If you want to add a little link to this button, we can also do that. On the right panel, click this link, and then maybe link it to framer.university. And now if this button is clicked, we will go to framer.university. So if we go back to the homepage, you can see that if I preview this site and take a look at this button, you can see that as I hover over this, it nicely scales up. You can see that, however, it goes a little bit to the right and it is not being scaled from the center. It is because of the stack settings of this little title plus button. To counter this, we can do a little trick here. We can wrap the button within a frame. So I will press Command and Enter on my keyboard when the button is selected. We can rename this to wrap, and then we can set its overflow to visible, because if it is hidden, you will see that we are not seeing the overflowing parts here. So let's set wrap to overflow visible, and then also make sure that all of these pins are deactivated on the button. So now if we click that, you can see that it nicely scales up, but it is still overflowing on the left and on the bottom. It's because of this parent title plus button, which is also set to overflow hidden. So let's set that to visible as well. And so now we quickly fixed this little problem. We could do the same thing here with this button in the top right corner, but I'm not going to spend time with that. What I'm going to show you right now is how you can add nice appear effects and animations to this hero section. So we can select each layer one by one that we want to add an animation to, and we can go to the right panel, click effects, appear, and then have, for example, a preset, maybe fade in, and basically we can preview the site, and you see that now it has this fade in effect. If I reload the site with Command and R, we can also, customize this preset. So we can say that, okay, I'm gonna increase the opacity a little bit, and then we can have a little offset here. So maybe a Y offset, it's gonna come in from the top. As you can see, we have a little overflow issue here as well, but we're gonna solve that really quickly. So let's have 0 offset on the X and -20 on the Y, and opacity will be 0. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the title plus sub and set overflow to visible here. So now as you can see, it will nicely come in from the top. So basically I can add this same effect to this other text layer. So I can select the Phantom Series 2. I can go and right click, copy effects, and then paste this effect to the other text layer, paste effects, and then these have the same effect. Now, if I reload the site, they come in nicely. And what I can do to make it even better is I can go to the second text layer, go to the transition, and apply a little delay here. So maybe 0.1. And then, as you can see, now we have this little staggered animation, which looks pretty good. And I can add this same, effect to all of the elements here on this page and basically specify different delay values. So everything will nicely come in with this staggered animation, everything coming in from the top. So I'm going to quickly do that. So now I apply the same effect to the navigation bar, to the background image, to these two text layers here, and to the button as well, with different delay values. So if I go to this preview mode, you will see that I have this nice staggered appear effect on this hero section if I reload the website. What I can do is I can go ahead and select each of these layers that have the effect, and then go to the appear effect, go to this transition here, and customize the stiffness and damping to make it a bit slower, so maybe 300. And maybe I can also change this to 80. And then if we take a look at this, we can see that we have the same staggered animation, but with a little bit slower transition. So it looks really, really nice. But it is important to mention that this is just the bare minimum that you can do in Framer without any code. So if you take a look at these examples that I'm showing right now on the screen, you can see that you can really go the extra mile with Framer and create some really amazing animations. And as I said, without writing any code. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking that, okay, Framer seems to be pretty decent, but what can I do with the Figma files I already have? Can I somehow turn them into Framer websites without having to rebuild them? Well, the answer is yes. You can save your Figma files and turn them into Framer sites with just a couple of clicks. Let me show you how. So I'm going to come here to Figma. I'm going to select this desktop breakpoint that I want to copy over to Framer. And then I'm going to go here and search for plugins, Figma to Framer. And then I'm going to run this Figma to HTML with Framer plugin. And then as you can see, it says copied 14 layers, paste in Framer. So I can jump back to Framer. And when I have selected this desktop breakpoint, I can press Command and V. And we are uploading this little Figma project here. And as you can see, it looks pretty decent. But as you can see, it is not perfect. So we have to make, some tweaks to this. So I'm going to make this full screen and I'm going to show you what you need to do. So for example, in this case, this image is not absolutely positioned. So I have to make it absolutely positioned, set all these pins to 0, just like we did it in Framer previously, and then set the Z index on these texts so they are above the image. And basically that's all we had to do. Now it looks pretty nice, but as you can see, the responsiveness is not really there. So what I can do is I can select this desktop. I can set the width to fill. We can set the height of this desktop breakpoint to fit content. So as you can see, now it is nicely responsive. We can add the tablet and phone breakpoints just like we did it previously, and we can make those adjustments really quickly. So 16 padding, then we can make sure that the background also has a smaller padding, so maybe 24 or 36. Then we can also change this title plus button to fill width, and we can change the text layers within as well to fill width, and then change the text layers size to a little smaller, so 36. And 14 on top. And basically that's all we had to do. Now we basically transformed a Figma project that was only a PNG into a real working website, because again, I can click publish, update this site, and if I click here, you see that I have this website right here, which is not perfect because as you can see, it doesn't take up the full height of the screen. So what we can do is we can change the desktop, for example, to feed content, that's right. And then this desktop within that we just pasted in, it has fixed height, that's the problem. We can set it to viewport height. So 100 VH will basically mean that it takes up 100% of the given viewport. So let's republish this with Shift, Command and P, and then open this website. And as you can see, it looks really nice. So as you can see, sometimes you have to do slight adjustments, slight optimizations, but at the end of the day, you are having a real website instead of just a static image. So now that it's clear for everyone how freaking cool Framer is, let me reveal the resource I've been building for the past 16 months to help thousands of Framer users to build even better websites. It's called framer.university, and if you go to this website, you are going to find hundreds of copy and pastable components like these interactive chroma backgrounds or this comment section component that you can start using for completely free. But that's not all. You are also going to find recreations of some of the most breathtaking animations from the internet that you can simply remix and see how they are built without any code in Framer. And the best part is that some of these resources also have related YouTube tutorials that you can find under the lessons page. So if you're planning to experiment with Framer, you'll probably revisit this website pretty often, just like the hundreds of people who visit it every single day. So just to recap what we covered today, I explained that many designers using Figma are basically creating images, not real websites. This means extra work and potential mismatches when handing off designs to developers. But there's a new trend among top designers using Framer. It's a no-code website builder that feels just like Figma, but lets you publish real, responsive websites with a single click. I demonstrated how to create a website hero section in both Figma and Framer and showed that while Figma gives you a PNG, Framer gives you a live website. I also explored how easy it is to add interactivity and animations in Framer and how you can convert your old Figma files into Framer projects seamlessly. Finally, I introduced Framer University, a resource with hundreds of copy and pastable components and tutorials to help you build even better websites. If you got so far in this video, please let me know by commenting #Framer, because I want to see how many of you guys are dedicated to these videos. Also, if you have any questions, make sure to leave those in the comments as well. I always reply to every single one of you guys. That's it for this video. Make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.